Coming up, Nigel Farage triggered a by-election in his Clacton constituency in a desperate attempt to deflect attention from investigations into the multiple financial scandals swirling around both his personal and political lives. The by-election turned to farce when all the major parties refused to participate in Farage's clown show, and the media chat has been all about a character in a bin costume. But what about the man they've all been ignoring, John Stevens of the Rejoin EU party, who beat Farage at a by-election back in 2010 and who's been working harder than any other candidate perhaps, pounding the streets of Clacton and its surroundings. In this video, I interview John about Brexit, Farage and Burnham's performance so far as a pro-Europe Prime Minister. Stay tuned. Before we get to hear from John, a quick reminder to give this video a like and a hype for the algorithm, check that you're subscribed to the channel and ping the bell for notifications of new videos, particularly like this bonus video, and for early access to my regular Saturday videos. Now, let's speak to John Stevens of the Rejoin EU party. So, a tough one to start, John, but let me ask the obvious question. Rejoin the EU has never really come close to winning a sort of by-election anywhere, and Clacton is a particularly Brexity seat. So what was your motivation standing here?
I think it's the best opportunity that the Rejoin EU cause has had since the referendum, actually, to ask a very simple question of people in Clacton. Do you think Brexit was a mistake? Now, we know that nearly 70% of people think Brexit was a mistake. If you saw the recent YouGov poll, the 10th anniversary poll of Brexit. But in Clacton, adjusting for its profile and demographic and everything, at least 35% of people think that. And that has been borne out on the doorstep. I mean, what I do is I go up with my team and we ask, what do you think of Brexit? There's just one question. And if they say, well, I like it, that's fine. We say, well, good morning or good afternoon or whatever. But a very large number of people, a surprisingly large number of people said, well, it hasn't worked, has it? Or I was against it. And this correlates quite closely with significant hostility to Farage on the ground with all his current difficulties. I mean, he is a very divisive figure. He has a fanatical following, almost a cult-like following here. And he will get a very significant vote, no question about it. But there are also a hell of a lot of people who dislike him. For a range of reasons. And if we can link that to saying Brexit was a mistake and mobilize that vote, a significant vote against Brexit in the heartland of Brexit. I mean, that's the whole point of fighting here. This is Mordor. It is the center of the Farage movement. If we can get a significant vote there, we can get one anywhere. Opinions have shifted. People say that at the time of the Brexit referendum, a whole lot of things were very different. No one was talking about tariffs. Free trade was the thing everybody was talking about, global free trade. America was seen as a reliable ally. There was no Trump in sight. The Russians were not invading anywhere. The threat of the Chinese behind the Russians was nowhere. The sense of an embattled European civilization was really nowhere. And all of that has changed. And making the argument that, we now need to be, to have the economics and the politics of scale to stand up to the challenges that we face, the feeling of an unreliability of the United States connection, and also the sense of protecting a European identity. If we can get in Clacton, in the face of the architect of Brexit, a significant vote against Brexit, that will mean that we can win a referendum on rejoining. And that will embolden the government, above all, to put rejoining in its next manifesto. Because the big problem we've got is that no one is really talking about Brexit at the moment. All the main parties, they're tiptoeing towards doing something about getting closer to the EU. I mean, the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrats and the Greens. And the Conservative Party is profoundly divided. And that's another element that is part of my campaign, is to try and persuade Conservatives that hitching their wagon to Brexit is just dragging them into the clutches of reform and restore.
Farage really only from what his main and only policy, I would actually say, is all about immigration. I mean, even Farage, what you were saying about other politicians don't talk about Brexit, I would include Nigel Farage in that. He doesn't seem to like talking about Brexit. He just wants to talk about immigration.
Well, the only bit of immigration he talks about is actually the boats,
Yeah,
which of course have been made worse by Brexit
Brexit,
because we have no
absolutely.
longer had the Dublin Accords and all of that. The people who came under freedom of movement, on average, they stayed about 5 years. They paid taxes. They and then went home. And while they were here, a lot of them didn't bring a lot of dependents and things because they could commute back to the countries they came from. Whereas what has happened is that we've replaced those people with people from outside the EU
Yeah,
who do wish to settle.
yeah. With
And I mean, we need these people. There's no question. Farage said he was going to solve the immigration problem. It's made it far worse.
of course.
And it certainly hasn't solved the one thing which he is still prepared to talk about, which is actually the relatively marginal problem of the boats in terms of numbers. It's tiny compared to the enormous shift that we've had in people coming to work and wanting to settle. Yeah.
John, your critics, if you have any, would probably say the question that came to my mind as well, I have to say, yeah, dare I mention him? We're a few minutes in now to our little chat here. Can I mention him? Count Binface seems to be getting a lot
Yeah,
of
no, of
media
course.
coverage.
No,
So
I mean,
don't you think there's a risk of splitting the anti-Farage vote with Count Binface appearing just about everywhere one look?
well, it's confirmed a lot of people who might have decided to give it a miss to actually support Farage among his supporters.
Well, because they're scared that he's
Actually
going
come
to
out
lose.
and vote.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
scared that he's going to lose to a
And of
big.
course, the other effect is that it does muddy the waters a bit for a serious campaign on a serious issue, which is what I'm trying to run. I mean, the number of these joke candidates are 34 candidates. Quite a few of these so-called joke candidates are actually reform people who've been put up to do it. Binface is seen even by people who don't like Farage as being a bit of an insult to Clacton.
Are you campaigning solely on Brexit, or are you also trying to get attention back onto the fact that Farage has called this election because he was feeling the heat of all the various investigations into his and Reform UK's finances? Is that an issue on the doorstep?
No, this is simply an opportunity. It's a unique opportunity. Well, I never expected we'd get to have an absolutely clean vote.
Yeah.
Do you think Brexit was a good idea? If you think it was a bad idea and it should be reversed, well, then this is your chance to tell the man who brought you Brexit that it's been crap. Clacton is a highly leave-orientated place, but any sort of significant anti-Brexit vote here against the man who brought you Brexit is devastating to him. It's far more damaging than mild humiliation by a dustbin.
In your mind, John, what would be a really good day at the office for you in terms of votes?
In theory, there should be about 35% of people in Clacton who think that Brexit is a bad idea. Now, whether they want to take this advantage, but if they do, that could change everything. This by-election actually could mark the beginning of reversing Brexit. I know for a fact that getting on for half of current Conservative MPs know that being hitched to Brexit when only 30% of the population think it's a good idea, and that is declining, is insane.
The mood music from Andy Burnham's camp, very much as reading in the Times today. There's open talk now about putting a commitment to trying to rejoin the EU in the next Labour manifesto.
Yeah, well, that is what this will boost. And if we get a split in the Conservative Party, if you get a significant body of people who say, under no circumstances will we go into a coalition with Reform and Restore, that's the opportunity. I know a bit about some of the money behind Reform, in the sense that I know some of the people involved from other parts of life. My impression is that I don't think there will be another by-election with Farage. I think what Farage is trying to do is to get a sort of North Korean style level of support in this election, sort of 95% of the vote or something.
The 10-day suspension, which will then trigger.
Yeah, exactly. And there'll be I can assure you, there'll be absolutely no difficulty in getting 10% for a reason. I think he'll walk.
So, John, in what respect can my viewers help your campaign in Clacton?
What we lack, actually, are troops on the ground. We've got a fully funded campaign. We're going to be obviously doing a lot of leafleting and paid deliveries and all that. But what is really required to match Farage's army, which is quite significant. They go in crowds around, looking rather sinister.
From all over the country.
Is people. And so if pro-Europeans can see that, this is the chance to tell the man who gave us Brexit that it was a mistake. And the more we can just get that simple message out, the more of a chance we have of making an impact. And wounding Farage at the core of his whole place in our politics, which is Brexit, in the heartland of his cause. One thing I agree with you entirely. I'm very optimistic about Burnham. And actually, this new Europe minister I know a bit, and he is pretty committed, I think.
Hamish Falconer, yes.
They need just a little bit of encouragement.
So, John, I'm going to put the website address, a link to your website on the screen now, along with the QR code that people can just photograph to get in touch with you if they're able to offer assistance anyway in your campaign in Clacton. I'll do that now.
That's great. Many thanks.